Before we begin this story of hidden heroism and quiet courage, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us keep these voices alive. Everyone in the small town knew Marcus. He opened his shop at 7 a.m., closed at 6 p.m., never caused trouble, never asked for attention. Just a quiet old mechanic who kept to himself. Nobody ever wondered about his past. Until that military convoy rolled through town, and one of the commanders saw Marcus, immediately ordered his soldiers to "Attention!" And everything changed forever. Marcus Wheeler, 58 years old, owner of Pine Ridge's only auto repair shop. For 15 years he'd maintained the same routine. Every morning at 7 sharp, he'd unlock the garage door, pour his black coffee and listen to the news on an old radio that crackled more than it played music. His hands were always stained with oil, fingernails permanently darkened with grease. The townspeople called him Quiet Marcus, not out of disrespect, but because that's simply who he was. A man of few words who let his work speak for itself. The shop was small but immaculate. One workbench, a few tool chests, that old radio, and walls bare except for a calendar and some invoice books. No personal items, no photographs, no hints about who Marcus Wheeler had been before Pine Ridge. When customers asked about his past, he'd simply say, "Wasn't from around here originally," and change the subject to carburetors or transmission fluid. People learned not to push. Marcus fixed their cars well, charged fair prices, and never caused problems. That was enough. But Marcus had secrets. Every night before bed, he'd sit in his small apartment above the shop and stare out the window at the American flag flying over the town square. His hands would shake. Not from age, but from memories he'd buried so deep that most days, even he forgot they were there. That Tuesday morning started like any other, except for the buzz around town. Word had spread that a military convoy would be passing through Pine Ridge as part of a Veterans Day ceremony. Soldiers from 3 states were traveling to the state capitol for a memorial service. Children were excited. The elderly townspeople had hung American flags along Main Street. There was a sense of anticipation, of honor, that the small town rarely experienced. Marcus had opened early that morning. Maybe the convoy would need mechanical assistance, he told himself. But deep down, he knew the real reason. It had been a long time since he'd seen soldiers. Part of him missed it, part of him dreaded it. At noon, the distant rumble of diesel engines began echoing through the valley. Marcus washed his hands, removed his work apron, and stepped outside his shop. He stood in the doorway, watching the main street where townspeople had gathered. The first military vehicle appeared around the bend, then the second, then a whole line of them, Humvees, transport trucks, official vehicles with flags flying. Marcus counted silently, an old habit from another lifetime. The convoy moved slowly through town, soldiers waving at the gathered civilians. Children ran alongside, waving small flags. It was a celebration, a moment of community pride. Marcus stayed back, watching from a distance. He didn't wave, he didn't cheer, he just observed, the way he'd learned to do when staying alive depended on seeing everything. The 5th vehicle in the convoy was a command Humvee. An officer sat in the passenger seat, window down, returning the waves of the townspeople. As the vehicle approached Marcus's shop, the officer's gaze swept across the crowd. And then it happened. The officer's eyes locked onto Marcus's face. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The officer's expression changed from casual acknowledgement to shock, then to something approaching disbelief. "Stop the convoy!" the officer shouted to his driver. The Humvee pulled over immediately. The vehicles behind it followed suit. The officer jumped out before the vehicle had fully stopped, his eyes never leaving Marcus. "Attention!" he barked to his soldiers. Every soldier in the convoy snapped to attention. The townspeople fell silent, confused by the sudden formality. What was happening? Why were they stopping? And why was the officer walking directly toward their quiet mechanic? The officer approached Marcus with quick, purposeful strides. When he reached him, he rendered a sharp military salute. "Sergeant Wheeler, sir." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Nobody had called him by his rank in 15 years. "Major Collins?" The officer introduced himself, still at attention. "I served under your command in Fallujah, 2003. Marcus's jaw tightened. That name. That place. He'd spent 15 years trying to forget. "Major," Marcus said quietly, "the past is the past." "Sir, we lost track of you after Ramadi. The official records listed you as—" "I know what the records say," Marcus interrupted, his voice barely above a whisper. "This man," he announced, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent street, "is Sergeant Marcus Wheeler. In Iraq, he saved 50 American soldiers, Silver Star recipient, a genuine war hero." The townspeople stared in stunned silence. Their quiet Marcus, a war hero. Mrs. Henderson, who lived next door to Marcus for 10 years, stepped forward. "Marcus? Our Marcus?" Sheriff Davies, who'd shared coffee with Marcus countless mornings, shook his head in disbelief. "Marcus, is this true?" Marcus took a step backward, his face pale. "Major, please." "No, sir," Major Collins continued, addressing the crowd. "This community deserves to know who's been living among them. Sergeant Wheeler's actions in Fallujah saved 50 lives, including mine." Dr. Patricia Williams, the town's only physician who'd treated Marcus for minor injuries over the years, moved closer. "Marcus, you never said anything." "There was nothing to say," Marcus replied, his voice strained. Major Collins wouldn't be silenced. The townspeople formed a circle, soldiers standing at respectful attention, as he began to tell the story that Marcus had buried. April 15th, 2004. Fallujah, Iraq. Our patrol was ambushed during a routine supply run. IED explosion disabled 2 of our vehicles. 12 wounded, 3 critical. We were pinned down by sniper fire and couldn't reach the casualties. Marcus stood rigid, his hands clenched at his sides. The memories were flooding back. The heat, the dust, the sound of bullets ricocheting off metal. Sergeant Wheeler assessed the situation and said 4 words, "I'll handle this." Then he did something I've never seen before or since. He went out there alone. Young Tommy Martinez, who worked part-time at Marcus's shop, pushed forward through the crowd. "Alone? Into a firefight?" "6 hours," Major Collins continued. "For 6 hours, Sergeant Wheeler moved between our position and the disabled vehicles. He eliminated sniper positions one by one, then began extracting the wounded. One by one, trip after trip, under constant fire." Mrs. Peterson, the schoolteacher, asked the question everyone was thinking. 6 hours? How many trips?" 17, Major Collins answered without hesitation. 17 trips into enemy fire. 3 times he was wounded himself. Gunshot to the left shoulder, shrapnel in his right leg, concussion from a grenade blast. He refused medical attention until every single soldier was evacuated. Marcus finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "I did what any soldier would do." "No, sir," Major Collins replied firmly. "You did what heroes do. Without you, 50 families would have gotten folded flags instead of their sons coming home." The weight of those words, Sheriff Davies stepped closer to Marcus. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" Marcus looked down at his oil-stained hands. "Because talking about it won't bring back the 3 I couldn't save." "Sergeant," Major Collins said gently, "did you ever receive your Silver Star?" Marcus shook his head. "No, I left the service immediately after medical discharge, didn't attend any ceremonies." "Why not?" "Because medals are for success stories. I failed 3 families that day. No amount of metal can change that." The crowd exchanged glances. This was a side of heroism they'd never considered. The weight of perceived failure, even in the midst of extraordinary success. Young Jake Peterson, 17 and planning to enlist after graduation, raised his hand tentatively. "But sir, 50 people." 53 went in, Marcus said quietly. 50 came out. You do the math. That evening, after the convoy had departed and the townspeople had slowly dispersed, Tommy remained at the shop. He looked at Marcus with new eyes, not just as his boss, but as someone who'd done the impossible. "Marcus, is it all true?" Marcus returned to work on the carburetor he'd been rebuilding. "Past is past, Tommy." "But 50 people." "Tommy," Marcus set down his wrench. "How many lives have you saved?" "Me, none, I guess." "Wrong answer. Every brake job you help me complete, every tire you change properly, every safety inspection we perform, we're saving lives. Different battlefield, same mission." Tommy considered this. "But what you did in Iraq?" "What I did in Iraq was my job on that day. What I do here is my job every day. Both matter." Word spread quickly through Pine Ridge. By the next morning, Marcus's shop had more visitors than it had seen in months. Not all came for automotive repairs. Many came simply to shake his hand, to thank him, to see a real hero up close. Bill Martinez, Tommy's father and a regular customer, arrived early. "Marcus, why didn't you ever tell us?" "Tell you what, Bill? That I did my job?" "That you're a hero." Marcus chuckled, a sound the townspeople rarely heard. "Hero? The heroes are the people who get up every morning and go to work. Parents who provide for their children. Teachers who shape young minds. Real heroes live ordinary lives extraordinarily well." Dr. Williams returned later that week, not for car trouble but for conversation. "Marcus, I've been thinking about what Major Collins said. 50 soldiers." 50 soldiers with 50 different stories," Marcus replied, not looking up from the engine he was working on. "They went on to live full lives. That matters more than one day in the desert. Do you ever wonder what happened to them?" For the first time, Marcus paused in his work. Every day. But wondering and knowing are different things. Sometimes wondering is enough. When Marcus arrived at work the next morning, he found something attached to his shop door. An American flag, neatly folded, with a note pinned beneath it. "For our hometown hero, thank you for your service, both then and now. Pine Ridge Community." Marcus stood, holding the flag for a long moment. It was the first personal item he'd considered displaying in his shop in 15 years. Slowly, he walked inside and mounted it on the wall behind his workbench, where he could see it while he worked. Several weeks later, Jake Peterson arrived at the shop. His enlistment papers were finalized, and he was leaving for basic training soon. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "How do you become a hero?" Marcus wiped his hands on a shop rag, considering the question carefully. "Jake, you don't become a hero by wanting to be one. You become a hero by doing what's right, when it's hard to do what's right." "But what you did in Fallujah—" "What I did in Fallujah was make a decision in 4 seconds that I've been living with for 15 years. The heroic part isn't the decision. It's living with the consequences, good and bad." Jake nodded slowly. "Will you tell me about it? About that day?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Someday, maybe. When you come back from wherever they send you, when you understand that the hardest part of being a soldier isn't the fighting, it's the coming home." 3 months later, Marcus received an official letter from the Department of Defense. His silver star was ready for presentation if he would accept it. The ceremony could be small, local, with just family and community members present. Marcus read the letter twice, then walked to where the American flag hung on his shop wall. 50 soldiers, 50 families, 50 lives that continued because of one terrible necessary day. He called the number on the letterhead. The ceremony was held in Pine Ridge's community center on a Saturday morning. Major Collins had driven down from Denver. 12 of the 50 soldiers Marcus had saved made the journey to be there. Their families came too. Wives, children, parents who wanted to thank the man who'd given them their loved ones back. When Marcus stepped forward to receive the medal, the room was silent, except for the quiet sobbing of grateful family members. "This medal doesn't belong to me," Marcus said, his voice steady but emotional. "It belongs to the 3 soldiers who didn't make it home that day. And it belongs to every person who serves their community quietly, without recognition, because it's the right thing to do." Marcus returned to his shop the following Monday, Silver Star mounted next to the American flag. He opened at 7 a.m., just like always. But something had changed, not just in how the town saw him, but in how he saw himself. Tommy arrived early, as had become his habit since learning about Marcus's past. "How does it feel?" Tommy asked. "Having the medal?" "Heavy," Marcus replied honestly. "Good heavy, but heavy." "Are you glad you got it?" Marcus looked at the medal, then at the flag, then at his young apprentice. "I'm glad the 50 soldiers who lived got to see their families again. The medal is just a reminder of that." As months passed, Marcus found himself talking more, not about the war, but about responsibility, about service, about the small heroisms of daily life. When high school students visited his shop for career day presentations, he told them about the importance of mastering a skill, of being reliable, of understanding that every job well done was a service to the community. "You want to be heroes?" he'd tell them. "Be the person others can count on. Be the one who shows up when others don't. Be the one who does what's right when no one's watching. That's where heroes come from." One day, a letter arrived at the shop. It was from the daughter of one of the soldiers Marcus had saved in Fallujah. She was 23 now, a college graduate, engaged to be married. "Dear Sergeant Wheeler," it began. "You don't know me, but you saved my father's life on April 15, 2004. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, he's walked me down the aisle at my wedding next month because of you. I wanted you to know that your decision that day gave me my father and gave my children their grandfather. Thank you doesn't seem like enough, but it's all I have. Thank you." Marcus read the letter 3 times, then carefully folded it and placed it in his wallet, next to a small photo he'd carried for 15 years. His squad from Fallujah, all 53 of them, taken 2 days before the ambush. On the anniversary of that day in Fallujah, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He closed the shop early and drove to the Veterans Cemetery, 30 miles outside Pine Ridge. He found the section for Iraq War casualties and located 3 headstones. He knelt beside each one, cleaning away leaves and debris, speaking quietly to names carved in granite. "Still thinking about you guys, still missing you, still trying to make it count." As he prepared to leave, an elderly man approached. "You knew them?" "I served with them." "My grandson," the man said, pointing to one of the headstones. "He was 19. Marcus nodded. "He was a good soldier, brave kid." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, 2 men connected by loss and memory. "Thank you for remembering them," the grandfather said finally. "Always," Marcus replied. Marcus Wheeler returned to Pine Ridge as the sun was setting, painting the small town in golden light. He parked in front of his shop and sat for a moment, looking at the flag hanging in his window, the silver star mounted beside it. Tomorrow, he'd open at 7 a.m. He'd fix cars, mentor Tommy, serve his community in small, important ways. He'd carry the weight of 3 lost friends and the responsibility of 50 saved lives. He'd be a hero in the most fundamental way, not because of one extraordinary day, but because of thousands of ordinary days lived with purpose and integrity. Because sometimes the most important stories aren't about the day everything changed, but about all the days that came after. And sometimes the greatest heroes aren't the ones seeking glory, but the ones content to serve quietly, carrying their burdens with dignity, making the world a little better, one small act at a time. Marcus Wheeler, quiet mechanic, Silver Star recipient, guardian of memories, protector of the ordinary. Living proof that heroes walk among us, often unrecognized, until one moment reveals the extraordinary heart beating beneath an ordinary surface. So I ask you now, have you ever encountered someone like Marcus? Someone whose quiet strength and hidden courage only became visible when circumstances demanded recognition? Share their story in the comments. Tell us about the unsung heroes in your community. That the most powerful narratives don't shout for attention. They wait patiently to be discovered. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please share it, subscribe, and help us continue honoring the ordinary people who do extraordinary things when no one is looking. And remember, the next time you interact with someone whose job seems routine, whose life appears simple, look a little closer. You might be standing in the presence of a hero who's simply chosen to let their actions speak louder than their words. The heroes are everywhere. We just have to know how to see them. To support my channel, like, comment, share, and turn on notifications.